In this video, I'm going to talk about the Visual Basic environment. So when you first start up Visual Studio, you'll generally get a start page. And for right now, I'm just going to close this output window. It will let you open up a project. It'll let you start a new project. It'll give you a list of recent projects that are out there. When you're looking at mine, some of mine are Visual Basic, some are C++. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be creating a new project. So I'm just going to close the start page. You will generally have your Solution Explorer window open. If for some reason it disappears or you can't see it, you can go to View and Solution Explorer and you can bring that up. So when we create a new Visual Basic project, so I'm going to go to File, New Project. And you'll have different programming languages here, C++, JavaScript, C#, Visual Basic. You want to make sure that you choose Visual Basic. And I'm going to choose Windows Classic Desktop. Once you make these choices, they'll probably be saved for your next project. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just choose a Windows form. So those are the choices you need to make, and then you want to give your project some type of meaningful name, okay? I'll call this VB Demo. And then you want to save it someplace. So you'll see by default, it's going into my Documents folder, Visual Studio 2017 Projects. This is a lot of subfolders when you're going to have to go back and find this in order to send it to me. So I recommend that you choose a location for these. I'm going to go to my desktop and I'm going to use this Visual Basic Student Files folder. And I'm just going to select that folder. So my whole project is now going to go into that folder on my desktop. You can see this here. Often this will be selected by default, which will just create a subfolder called VB Demo in the VB Demo folder. So I'm going to uncheck that and choose OK. All right, so this looks a little different than C++ because you're getting a form to display. But when we're working with Visual Basic, we also need a few other things open as well. We need to have a toolbox so we can add controls. We need to have a properties window open so we can adjust the properties. So I'm going to come over here to View, and I am going to start with a toolbox. Okay, this is the toolbox, and it has all the controls that you can add to your forms. I'm going to click on this push pin, which will dock it to this window here, so it'll always be open. And you'll see we have all different Windows forms or just the common controls. Sometimes the common controls are more helpful. You don't have so many things to look at one time, especially when you're first getting started. So that's what I'm going to keep open for now. In addition, like when you're working with these different controls, like a button or a checkbox or a combo box or a date time picker, you have to set the properties for each of them. So I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to choose Properties window. And over here you'll see your Properties window. I'm going to make that a little bit larger and probably make my Solution Explorer a little bit smaller. This is generally how I like to have my environment set up when I'm working on a Visual Basic program. So if you're missing something, just remember you can choose on the View Main Menu option to get it back. you're always going to want to have a toolbox, and you're always going to want to have a properties window. You can, you know, click on these push pins to hide things or bring them back. This is just generally how I like to have it set up. Now, once you have this form, this is the form, and you know, this is a little tiny form. You can resize the form if you want to different sizes, but I'm just going to select the form. Oops, sorry, that was my fault. I'm going to just select the form. I should just select it once. I think it is already selected. That's why I'm getting this problem. So here you can see it's been selected. You have the little resizing handles around it. So over here in the properties window, you'll see form 1, and these are all the different properties for the form. Okay, so if you want to make a change to the form, and there's different things. These are listed by category. I really prefer to click on this A to Z or the alphabetical and change them this way so I can really find what I'm looking for. So you can see all the different things you can change about the form. You can change the background color. You can change an image. You know, you could change the font of what you put out there. All different things that you can put out here if you want to. You'll notice that right here in name is form 1. That is the internal name. It's like a variable name for our programming language, so when we're referring to it in code, it will use that name. There's another property if you scroll down here, which is the text property, and what I can do is I can change that. Right now it says Form 1. I want you to notice over here the title of this is Form 1. So I'm going to change that to VB Demo. And once I hit the Enter key, you'll notice over here that the name of the form, you know, the title of that form now is VB Demo. You don't want to be writing applications where you have a form and the title of it is Form 1. So you always want to change the text. So text is just an example of a property that you can change. So here I'm just going to show you a couple of very common controls that you'll be using. And then I'll just show you how to run the program. So let's say we want to put a button out here. So you can either drag the button onto the form if you want, okay, or you can double click the button. It'll put it up here, and then you can move it around to wherever you want. So here we have a button. You'll see it says button 1 on it. And I'm going to come over and I'm going to look at those two properties for the button. Now make sure the button is selected. See the little resizing handles around it. So the button is selected. So here's the name. Remember, that's the internal name, like the variable name for code. So I'm going to change its variable name or its internal name to btn exit. btn is a prefix that's used to represent buttons. And the reason that this is used is when you start to write your code, let's say you have 12 buttons. If you just type btn, you'll just get a list of all the buttons you can select from. Okay, so you want to use these standard prefixes. And notice that after the btn's, generally all lowercase, the next words will start with uppercase, kind of camel case, so you can easily read what's going on here. So when I hit enter here, notice it doesn't change the text inside the button. It just changed the internal name. So now I'm going to come down here to my text property, and I'm going to change that to, let me put exit. And now you'll notice the text on the button changes right here. Okay, so that's a button. I'm going to show you a label. So I'm going to put a label right here. All right. And I'm going to come over here and you'll see same two properties, right? Name is up here. And we could change the text property below. So let's just talk about the name for labels. labels are one control that you don't always have to change the internal name on. If the label is just displaying something on the screen or being just used for, or the form for display purposes, you don't have to do anything with it, but you can change it. And notice if you put one label out, it'll default to label 1, the second one will be label 2, etc., etc. So I'll change this just so you see the prefix, LBL, I'll just call that message, and then I'm going to change its text property to click the button to exit. Okay, and you'll notice it resizes. You can move it around, and we can adjust the colors, the font size. We can do all that later, but just to show you. And lastly, I'm just going to put a text box out there. A text box is where a user can enter something. They're not going to enter anything in this application, but the prefix for text boxes is txt. I'll call this enter something. And here you don't have to change the text because it's just waiting for text to be entered. You don't have to change the text property. The text property, if you look at it, is just blank. And then we can start our program. Now, we haven't written any code for the button or the text box, so when it runs, it's not really going to exit, or I can type something in here, but it's not going to do anything with it. It's just kind of showing you some really simple controls. Okay. If you want to look at code, you can just expand your solution file, and you can open up your Visual Basic file, and there's really no code in there at this time because we haven't written anything. So that's just a quick example for you to look at that explains a little bit more about controls and about properties, about the toolbox, just a little to get you started. We'll learn more in depth in the next chapter.